So yesterday we were talking about solitude and loneliness, and solitude is not going backwards in your life. It's actually a way of embracing the next chapter. First, you need to filter. You have to let go, work through, and um, and resolve some of the issues that have, of the betrayal, as you take the next step. Now, it's very important to take the next step. It's not going to be easy. It actually takes a lot of courage, but is totally unhealthy. 50% increased risk of dementia, 30% increased risk of heart conditions. The list goes on, diabetes, chronic pain, a lot of conditions. Actually, the Surgeon General here in the United States has considered loneliness one of the most important epidemics of our current life. So it's okay to go back into your sacred place of home, stay in a bubble for a while when you need to find some solitude, but eventually step out, right?
Yes, one little step at a time, slowly but surely. Uh, Loneliness, it's not being alone. We've been talking about this week. It's a lot. It's about being enclosed in your own self, caged in and unable to reach to others. So there's no need for loneliness. Uh, but it is good to enjoy your own company. That is very healthy. It's not only healthy but indispensable to build up the life you want. But loneliness, you can be very lonely surrounded by people. It doesn't need
Yes.
for you to stay on your own.
It's connection, what the step that takes you out of loneliness.
Right.
Loneliness is a feeling of being alone, even when you're surrounded by people.
Yes, it's not even being able to reach out to other people. It's you can't break your own glass. You're enclosed in. So it's a little step at a time. It's not easy at the beginning because it's very difficult to break that sort of imagined illusion of a glass that surrounds us. But once you make a little step forward, then it's easier the next step. And then little by little you go and you can go places and volunteer so you can meet other people and you don't stay at home.
Yes, and the first time that effort of stepping out is difficult, but necessary. And the only way of working around it is actually practice cognitive theory. Go, go, go.
Yes.
And do it. First time it's going to be difficult. And as you do it, it's going to become easier and easier. You don't do it, it becomes harder and harder. That's what theory says.
Yes.
And research has proven.
The more that you insist on staying on your own, the more difficult it gets to break out and reach to others and connect to others. And the thing is, sometimes when you're lonely, when you're feeling lonely, you think that no one is interested in reaching out to you. But when you're feeling that lonely, usually
Over.
Hubert. But what usually happens is because you're so caged in. Uh, People sometimes are trying to reach out to you, but you're not listening, you're not paying attention. So
or, or
it's not that.
or you don't feel like you are in the best moment of your life, so you're concerned about not being up to par, being judged. uh, to my surprise, people are usually more concerned about someone they don't know, hardly can care about, being judging them, than about friends, because of course they know their friends and they know how they think, so they can handle that. But stepping out where you don't know anyone, if you are thinking about what they might think about you, guess this: first, they are likely not thinking too much about you or anything else. They're just thinking about probably the same thing, because as much as you don't know them, they don't know you. So it goes both ways.
Right.
Um,
The thing is, when you're feeling lonely and depressed, and everything is a mountain, everything is hard to do. Um, so the first thing is the first step. Get dressed and get out of your house. It's not going to be easy, but let's do it. The next step is, I don't know, talk to someone in the supermarket. It's little by little connecting to others. If we don't make the effort to connect to others, it's a lot more difficult for others to connect with us, because we're so sort of caged in, and we feel like no one wants to connect with us, and oh, people don't want, no one is interested in talking to me, and probably no one is interested in spending time with me. But that's not necessarily the case. The case is that most people are dealing with their own lives and their own difficulties and their own obstacles, and if they don't see in you someone open to connect with them, uh, they'll respect your decision. But it's not that they don't want to connect to you, it's just that they don't feel you are open to connect with
yes,
them.
but these are all the questions that arise. Am I good enough for this? Am I looking good enough? Am I dressed enough? Am I, whatever. Questions of adequacy. And those are the questions of shame. But as I usually say, it's not that shame points out your inadequacies, is that it gets you ready for where you are going. So let's think about shame in a different way. It's not pointing out what you're short of, but
How is
actually
that?
making you ready for your next
how
step.
how does shame work that way?
Sorry.
How
Oh,
does
in
shame
which,
work that way, to
so
not
when you are
pointing out your
thinking,
inadequacies, but helping you to cross over?
well, if when you are preparing yourself to go into a place and you're checking, okay, all your tools, do I have am I dressed, the way I need to be dressed? Do I have my smile? You go checking, do I have all these things?
Mm.
When you have all those things, you're ready to go. And so that's how it works.
What what do you consider shame to be? You've been studying shame for a long time.
Yeah. Well, that's, yeah, I mean, you're taking me to yes, I actually wrote a book on shame. I wrote more than one book with shame, but one particularly, that's psychoanalytic perspectives on gay shame, whatever. Uh, um, and that was based on research. Do we have time am I going to go into too much theory
No,
and I get in
no,
trouble?
don't go let's not go into the theory, just understanding what shame is.
So my understanding of shame, based on my research, was that shame That is that shame is what the feeling that we have when we're infants, we're at the beginning of life, and it's the first contact we have with reality. So because at that time we are more concerned of, it's the body ego, we're concerned with survival. The question is, am I good enough for the context, for reality? So it's the first emotion we have when we enter in contact with reality. And we usually, who handles reality for us is in relation to our mother. So, no, the person that's doing the
Right.
caregiving. So when that happens, and that is our first sense of belonging, that
Right.
imprint. So we are all, so the question in shame is usually, are we ready? And what we crave, we crave to be successful in dealing with reality because we are seeking belongingness.
Okay, we are seeking to belong
We're seeking to
and
belong, we're seeking to
to
survive,
to be
and
part.
and this is the beginning of life. So the self is a body self, no? The first, at the beginning, Freud said, at the beginning there was a body, sort of thing. Is that
Okay, so
anyhow?
we come into existence as a body. So
Yes,
that's what you're saying.
and
At the
and
beginning
then
of our
as
life, our identity is our body.
yes, and then we go developing an identity,
Okay.
as Lily, as Leah, whoever that means. No, it's a narrative.
Yes.
So when we develop, we learn to speak, we get into language, the symbolic, as Lacan calls it, then it comes guilt. And it's no surviving is not about the survival of the body, it's about the survival of our sense of self, of our identity, which is a mirror that we have. Our reality is a social reality. So first we ask ourselves, am I good enough? Which is shame. The next question is, what have I done? Hmm? It's a
Okay.
representation.
So in becoming who we are, our identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other people are constantly our mirrors. We reflect ourselves in other people, in those around us,
Yes.
to in order to get feedback. I mean, unconsciously, it's not that we do it consciously,
Yes.
but we are constantly reflecting ourselves in the people around us, to get feedback about our own selves, right?
Yes. Yes. Our sense of self is supported by those that we mirror onto. That's
Okay. So when I ask my mother, am I doing this right? I, I get a sense of security from my mother saying, yes, you're doing it right. And even saying, no, no, you have to correct this and that, because it does
mm-hmm.
draw my limits about how to do, and if I'm doing, I mean, and it's about the the process of learning and becoming who am
Yes.
I.
That's
Uh,
why it's not only speech, it's behavior, it's that contact, that warmth, whatever surrounds you. Well, no,
right.
it's that there is a lot of things very rich that can be very rich context.
So shame, I mean, coming down, decoding shame. Shame is actually, we all feel shame. We all feel shame constantly. It's part of our daily
Mm-hmm.
routine, feeling a little bit of shame. Just even in the most simple things, like, oh, my shoes are not
Yes. Now, I
dress-wise.
consider this thing that you're in Argentina, so the term vergüenza, I'm not sure if vergüenza stands for what in United States is called shame, because the culture is different. So that shunning, that individuality that marks people, the connections here, it's far more marked. It's deeper than in Argentina, where everybody, you're always surrounded by people. And the
Yes,
forgiveness is part of the culture, is the forgiveness, and
totally.
you're always trying to be best, but we all know that, we're trying. So it's a little bit more forgiving, and the it's and the culture includes, it's including, always absorbing you, whereas here it's a little bit more tough, less warm.
Well, we here we tend to make friendship an art. We're constantly surrounded by friends. We're always,
Yes,
and we grow up together, because the difference is we grow up together with the people we've known forever. My friends are the friends I've met. I've even had friends that I've met when I was 3 years old. So, and they're still around. And they're some of my very best friends. So that's difference here to
yes.
what you
I mean,
experience
for
in the
me,
States,
it's
because you travel around and your connections are not, sometimes they do not last that long because you move around
yes, yeah.
and
So
you change
the term
schools.
shame could be different in Argentina than it is here, but
Okay,
the idea of shame is that first experience with reality you have during the infancy, uh, and you work with that together within the relationship with the mother, which the caregiver, who's the dyad, right? You're one with this person, and that imprints a sense of belonging, which we seek, because not only later on, we mirror ourselves with others to give us a sense of who we are, which makes, for instance, when you are lonely, when you're a part of a team and that team is energetic and go for it and supportive and whatever, you are more effective, more willing to try new things. You have a level of effectiveness that it's not going to be the same if you're surrounded by people that are melancholic, it's like dragging and whatever, and are judgmental. So the surrounding gives you a value. Court would say it's a value that you feel they give to
right,
you, and you go with it. Um, and that's why belonging is so important. It supports your sense and your survival at another level.
right. And it is part of your identity. Who do you belong? Your circles, your family, your interests,
Hmm.
your it's all part of your identity.
Yes.
Yes. But then we were about solitude this week, and how sometimes even when you're surrounded by people, you can feel alone. And why is it that you feel alone even when surrounded by people? And it's usually because you're having a hard time connecting. And when you're having a hard time connecting, you're having a hard time, you're giving other people a hard time connecting to you.
Well,
Uh,
sometimes there are many reasons why that can be. One person can be super sensitive, so interprets whatever gesture in the wrong way, and oh, you hurt me. And so when I was trying to make myself a cup of coffee, whatever. I mean, I'm just super exaggerating here, but sometimes happens that people get lost in this translation between gestures and meaning, and
right,
making, turning a gesture into something that maybe was not supposed to be. But also the other thing, remember, we are talking about betrayal. We have been, that's our topic in divorce now, but separation. But the idea of someone, if we consider betrayal, which, I'm not totally buying into this well-known idea of betrayal being a break of trust. But if you can trust others, and you are most and you're concerned about getting hurt again, withdrawing into a bubble, fetal
Being
position.
defensive. Yes.
Yes, right.
Being defensive. Yes. It usually is a very usual reaction to betrayal or the loss of trust, to be defensive, because the first thing you think is, some I must have done something to deserve this. So because I don't know what is it I did to deserve it, I'm constantly aware that I might be betrayed again. So I'm pulling everyone away from me so that they cannot reach me and they cannot betray me. But if they cannot betray me, they cannot love me either.
No, and if it's an issue of trust, you need to be close in order for trust to happen. And if you don't have close people around you, then, as you say, you are missing out of connecting with
Well,
others.
yes, only people that you care about and that are close to you can betray
Yes,
you. People that you don't know
it's
cannot
part of
betray you
how it
because you're
works.
not expecting anything from them. So only people you care.
And there it goes. That then, okay, so I'll step out, but I'll make these imaginary walls, these boundaries, which I don't like too much, because I'm going to tell you why I don't like. Boundary is one of the very earliest things we do. It's a very primitive defensive strategy. We start building boundaries when we say, whatever is pleasant is mine, whatever is not pleasant is not mine, I'll throw it out, right? And that's how we go through life. Whatever feels good, it's mine, I can keep it. Whatever doesn't feel good, you know what?
I
Go
reject
your way.
it.
Now,
Yes.
remember that what's pleasant for one side of our, for one part of our psyche might not be. So there is this idea of masochism, which could play along, and although it feels bad, it's actually pleasant. So it gets complicated, um, but the idea of, okay, I'm going to make these walls and don't dare cross my boundary, which nobody sees. So the risk of getting betrayed again, uh,
Yes,
you know,
I tend to agree with you. I've tried boundaries. I went a little bit too far with boundaries, and I found myself completely caged in my boundaries, and to the point that people were knocking on my door, and I wasn't listening. I was so very strongly protected that it was very difficult to connect.
mhm.
So I think that boundary, because we hear a lot about, oh, you have to build your boundaries and you have to define your boundaries and so on. And I think it's not about building boundaries. It's about deciding who you are, what do you stand for, what do
And
you
learning to,
want in your life, and what you don't want in your life,
yes, and
right?
learning to dance with life, with the waves of life, with the rhythm of life, which is why we're working on this project called autonomy, because that's what autonomy is.
Yes, and because life is ever changing. There's one thing about life is that it changes constantly. And in order to navigate our lives in a not only healthy way, but also in a way that we enjoy life. This is our life. We're meant to enjoy it, not just go through it.
Yes.
We're meant to enjoy life. Let's enjoy life. So if we build boundaries, we're not going to enjoy life. But it, because life is constantly changing, there's one thing about life is it's a constant change. The way to navigate it and enjoy it is being resilient and develop uh, a very a very needed skill, which is adaptability.
Mm-hmm.
So you can adapt to change and choose who you are, who do you want to be, what do you want in your life, what is it that you don't want in your life, and build your life, but stay flexible, adapt to changes. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's going to be
Have have a kind heart. Um, be positive instead of having all these tools that are going to keep you in the, you're in a war zone expecting people to hurt you. That
right.
wears you down. And because also the other thing is, if you have been suffering for low energy, defensive mechanisms waste a lot of
Wear you
energy.
down. That
Yes,
those
yes.
being defensive wears you down. Is very tiring. It's
So
very tiring. It's very tiring to be constantly on alert, feeling that something bad is going to happen, that you're going to be threatened, or it's enjoying life. You need a more positive perspective and less alert. It's very tiring.
yes,
Yes.
where you're standing in relation to my boundary. That's, it keeps
Yes,
watch,
it was
keeps you watching.
constantly checking that no one is stepping on your boundary.
Yes,
It must be very tiring. So
yes.
yes, I I don't like the approach of focusing on boundaries. I don't like
And
it. I've tried it, and it wasn't a good experience.
what I and understand that if it's one of the most primitive defenses that in which you are building your sense of self and in um, in relation to everybody else, why would you use such an old tool when there are more current ones? And autonomy is one of the, in psychology, is the highest level of maturity you can achieve.
Yes, being your own, the ruler of your own life, the
Yes, and
leader
but
of your own life.
knowing that you're negotiating with other people.
But yes,
So no,
we
yes,
share this planet with 8 billion people, so we need to negotiate constantly spaces and places, but
but also
and experiences.
it also helps you deal with betrayal, reduce the risk of betrayal, because what happens is if we consider betrayal as trust,
As a breach
then
of trust. Yeah,
or a breach of trust. When when we trust someone and we expect this person to behave in certain way, right? Then at one point we start demanding that behavior, and
right,
right, and when they don't
right.
behave as they should,
As you think they should.
as you think they should,
Right.
two things
Which they
happen.
won't,
this
because they're not
person
here.
this person lost their freedom to behave in whichever the way they
And
want.
that's the thing, that people are not here to to cover our expectations, not in this life to cover our expectations on them, but theirs, the same way that we should take become the rulers of your own life if we want to 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 comply with our own expectations.
Yes.
So we cannot demand or expect others to fit to our own expectations of them. They have their own plan. It's their own life, right?
And they
Uh,
can change their minds, and they have the freedom to do, or maybe sometimes don't do as expected, which, so I said there were two things. One is you start idealizing
right.
because you see them in a way they might not be, which is why I call my next book, I call it Fuck Freud. you know um, but the so the and the other thing is the person, you are shackling the freedom of this person to behave in that way. And in that way, you are exposing yourself to be betrayed at any moment. So
or,
by
or to destroy a relationship, because
yeah.
when you shackle other people to fit your own expectations, they at one point they will need to break free,
Mm-hmm.
because their own people, not yours. So we should be focusing on our own expectations, our own life. How do we would want to live our lives, and not demanding, which is very tiring too, demanding and expecting uh, other people to fit our own expectations, because
Yes,
they're busy fitting their own expectations, not ours. They have their own lives.
absolutely. So with that, we'll meet again tomorrow.
We'll meet
Yeah,
Friday,
tomorrow's
Thursday.
Thursday. So,
Right.
all right.
See you tomorrow.
Now, see you.